Back in about 1971, I moved back here from Fort Yates. I had gone to work, Lynn and I had gone to work there. I lived there for 6 years and I moved home. Lynn was in a training program with the Economic Development Administration. He went to Omaha, Nebraska. We had 4 children, and I just found it too difficult to be at Standing Rock, so I came home. I was working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs at that time. When I got home, I was unemployed, of course. I didn't have a job. There were 17 of us living at my mother's. My brother had come home unemployed too with his family. The phone rang and the Bureau of Indian Affairs called me, wanted to know if I would come back to Standing Rock. They had a different job for me and they wanted me to apply. And I said no. My mother got really upset. 17 of us living in this house, she said, and you turned down a job. I said, we can't afford to feed all of you. Okay. Then I got another phone call, and this one was from Harry Kohler. And I had worked with him. He was superintendent of schools at Solon High School. And he heard I was at Turtle Mountain. And he, in the meantime, had gone to work at Mary College, which is now the University of Mary. There was a job open there, the director of talent search, the TRIO programs for Department of Ed. And he wanted to know if I would be interested in the director position. My mother's voice was ringing in my ear. And I said, I will do this on condition that I can stay on the reservation, Turtle Mountain Reservation. He said, come to Bismarck and let's talk about it. So I jumped in my car and off I went to Bismarck. And he said, it is a state director position. What it was is they had a counselor position for each reservation. And if I was a director, I could stay at Turtle Mountain because it was the largest reservation. We had the biggest population. And I could travel from here just as easy as from Bismarck. And so I took the position. I became the state talent search director. Together with the director of student services, who was Fred Baker, and he was my immediate boss. We hired counselors on each of the reservations. And I want to remember that at Standing Rock, it might have been Glen Eagle. At Fort Berthold, it was Phyllis Howard. Turtle Mountain was Sherman Burnell. And at Spirit Lake, it was Gertie Kavanaugh. And our first task was to go out, and this was summer now, go out and find every graduate from the high schools and contact those students. And what Talent Search was designed to do was to find low-income students and help them further their education or even find jobs, apprenticeships, and whatever. And it was exciting. We thought it was just a beautiful idea. So we went off, and I'll give you a little side story. We went off, and everybody found their graduates. We started to look for funding to get them to school and so forth. There's 2 stories here. The BEOG program came out about that time, which is now Pell Grant. And it had a parent contribution section there. And so we were exploring, what does the parent contribution mean? Does this mean that parents are going to automatically have to give a certain amount of money for tuition and whatever? And none of us, Fred Baker had a college degree, but he was the only one. I was a trained secretary. I had an associate's degree in secretarial science way back in the day. And the rest of them, we were all just sort of reservation counselors, so to speak, with a lot of heart, but not a lot of background. And so I told everybody, you send me those, get the BEOG applications done and send them to me. And I said, until I can negotiate what this is, we're not going to send them anywhere. So in the meantime, our boss in Denver calls me up and he said, I know this isn't true. And I said, what? And he said, they told me that you have the BEOG applications and you're not mailing them out. I said, it's true. I said, what does the parent contribution mean, and what is that going to mean for our families? Does that mean our students are not going to be able to go to school unless parents start making loans or selling their land or doing whatever to go to school? I said, what does it mean? He said, I'm not really sure. It's a new program. I'll check it out. So I held them on my desk where the stack was getting higher. And so they called a meeting in Bismarck. And again, my boss from Denver, and the TRIO programs was Department of Ed, and our boss was in Denver. So he stands up and he says, I know this is not true, he repeats it again, but I understand that the Talent Search program is not sending out their BEOG applications, but they're complete and they're sitting on somebody's desk. So I raised my hand and I said, they're on my desk. What does it mean? What does parent contribution mean? And he said, well, what it means is parents are going to be expected to do a certain amount of funding for the students. And at that time it was so new, nobody really knew. So we sat down and we hashed it out, and I sent all the BEOG applications out. Then we got into a struggle over memo of understanding. Who funds first, the Bureau or the Department of Ed for BEOG? And we felt that the BEOG program should fund first, and nobody would interpret it. So I wrote a memo to all the financial aid officers in North Dakota, and I said that according to what I'm hearing from Department of Education, that the BEOG is the first source, and BIA is second. My boss in Denver calls me up and gives me heck for that again. I said, well, I said, you told me that it was up to the local area, and I said, that's how we want it. So I said, you didn't tell me it wasn't that way. So for that year, I got to interpret the memo of understanding between the Department of Ed and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. But later they hashed that out too.